In the Eastern Conference Finals, we have the Miami Heat with a 2-1 lead over the Boston Celtics. Mike, who do you like taking the series?
I think I like the Boston Celtics still. I think we saw it in the Toronto series. Boston can go through those cold streaks, but they can turn the momentum around, and that's just a key sign of a championship team. And Boston's done that. Miami, had two tough comeback wins against Boston, and there was a lot of lost hope. But, I think in Game 3, we saw Boston come back and hold that lead, which is what they haven't done in the last two games. So I'm going to stick with Boston.
And it was looking shaky there. It was looking shaky there in the fourth quarter as well.
I still think Miami are the clear favourites here. Their coach, Eric Spoelstra, hasn't ever lost a 2-0 lead and lost the series. If you compare the roles of Jimmy Butler and Marcus Smart, after the Game 2 loss, Marcus Smart cracked it at everyone in the locker room, allegedly, but I'm pretty sure it's what happened. Cracked it at everyone in the locker room, Whereas if you look at someone like Jimmy Butler, he's someone who would motivate his team after being down that much of a deficit.
Well, I disagree with you. I think Gordon Hayward back just gives the Celtics the edge. I think his impact on defense is something that's very much overlooked. I think he really helps the Celtics play that small ball lineup really well. We obviously saw Bam in Game 3 dominate. He was back on the glass. He was getting boards, and had a decent game. AP, you talked about the Marcus Smart incident after Game 2, and obviously not ideal for one of your leaders to be spitting the dummy like that, I suppose. But they came back, they came out in Game 3, continued that great first half form that they've had throughout the entire series, really. But the third quarter has really been what's letting the Celtics down. We saw it in the Toronto series. They lost all 7 third quarters in that series. And Game 2, they were terrible. The Heat came out and absolutely torched them. But as I mentioned previously, the hot heat, it just didn't continue. We saw Jay Crowder today in Game 3 went 2 of 10 from 3. Goran Dragic 1 of 5. And so when these Heat players don't fire, it really impacts the rest of the team.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown thing is a little bit overblown as well. Like you said, it was after Game 2, and obviously they came back and won Game 3. So I think that was probably something that the team needed, a little bit of that fire, a little bit of that passion. And we saw in Game 3, Jaylen Brown come back with a more aggressive mindset, right? That's something we haven't really seen in the first 2 games. And I think Marcus Smart really knows how to motivate the rest of his team. So you could talk about, Jimmy Butler motivating his teammates. I think Marcus Smart is doing the same.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler, I don't know if you know, he actually requested to not have his wife and family visit him in the bubble for that period of time. To me, that shows passion. To me, that shows an intention to win, because he views that whole bubble stretch as a business trip, and he's not prepared to lose. Is what I'm trying to get at. The Heat have only lost now 2 games in the bubble out of their 12 or so. I think it is 12 games. And yeah, I don't see him losing anytime soon with that incredible stat line and that incredible passion for the game.
I think the reason Miami has been playing so well, and this has been pointed out by a couple of people, but Miami resorts to the zone defense in the second half. And that has thrown off Boston's offensive rhythm, right? They're not playing their usual offense, right? But I think in Game 3, we saw Boston, especially during that third quarter when they went to about a 20-point lead, we saw Boston find a way to counteract that zone, which has been so lethal for Miami throughout the entire playoffs. They stopped Giannis with it, they obliterated the Pacers with it, and they won the first 2 games against Boston with it.
For sure. I think if we look back at Game 2, I think what really cost the Celtics was a 4-quarter effort. You have to play 4 quarters to win a game of basketball. The Celtics only played 3. That third quarter, they came out, there was a 20-point differential. They went in up 13, down 7 going into the last. And we saw that in Game 3. The Hayward back, everyone locked in. And I suppose, the Celtics gave that 4-quarter effort. They were a bit... I was worried a little bit in that fourth quarter when the Heat started coming, and you just thought, oh no, it's going to happen again. But I think now that the Celtics have got that win under their belt, I think they'll use that confidence. And I don't know, Mike, you said you're not saying it will be a 4-2, but I think that's exactly what it could be. I could definitely see the Celtics winning the next 4 and wrapping this series up in 6.
I still think Miami's got it in the bag. I mean, they had one bad game where they shot pretty poorly. I honestly don't think Hayward made that big of a difference. I think Miami just played a bad game today. He scored 6 points. He might have had 3 steals. If you look at it, that's just 6 points.
Well, I think that the rest of this series relies heavily on Gordon Hayward. He is that spark that is going to come off the bench and make the difference for the rest of this game. We saw at the start of the series, without Gordon, Boston's bench simply just was not good enough. I think that Gordon Hayward is going to be that difference in the way he plays. Whether it shows up on the stat sheet or not is going to determine the rest of the series for Boston. If Gordon Hayward can play up and make this team better both defensively and offensively by creating a little bit more spacing, I think that we can see Boston just really turn the tide and not give Miami that lead back.
Sure. It's funny you mentioned Gordon Hayward, and I'd say Jimmy Butler would arguably be the most important player for the Heat. And I think for the Heat to win this series, I think Jimmy Butler really does need to step up earlier in the game. For sure, don't get me wrong. Incredible in the last quarter. Jimmy Butler, Jimmy gets buckets, all right? We've seen him do it throughout this playoffs and throughout his career. But he needs to be there early in the game. The Heat can't keep coming back from these big leads because, the Celtics choked that lead in game 2, weren't great in game 1. But, that's the Celtics aren't going to keep giving you those opportunities. And I think Butler, he says he really wants to get his teammates involved in the game. Great work, that's good. But I think as the star of the team, you do need to step up. And, I think you got Butler who's going the whole, I don't know, you said it's a business trip, Alex, but, we've got Gordon Hayward who's literally just come back from injury and spending time with his family. There was a lot of conjecture as his wife's pregnant, and if he was going to leave the bubble, and he said he's going to stay now. If or when the pregnancy or the baby is coming, Gordon Hayward's staying. He's staying in the bubble, and I think that's important for team morale. The Celtics have their team. No one's injured. They've got everyone there, and I like them to win this series.
I guess we'll see who wins this series over the next week or so. Comment down below who you think will win.